listening to my bell anymore.
Okay, could I get you to take your seats, please? So you will be going back to your groups to do more group work. So, but if you just want to make yourself comfortable, possibly slide some of the boards to the side. Or this board here, Ruth. If you could slide to the side when you finish writing. Okay, so I want to now just, you get to take a breather. Jennifer doesn't get to take a breather, she's got to do some work. And I want to introduce you to Dr. Jennifer Butte, sorry, my voice is really going now, isn't it? Who's just going to talk a little bit about her own experiences and hopes for the future, really, around the whole personalised dementia care.
Yes. So my father had dementia. I was with him when he died. I have it. And I now live in a dementia-inclusive village with about 100 other people who have dementia, which is a real privilege to walk the path with them. We stay there until we die. I've got 2 funerals later this week. And then as a GP. As a GP, I believe that everyone had equal worth and value. And I try to maximize the potential of each individual within the restrictions of their condition, but stretching the boundaries. It's about altering attitudes and helping others to want to, valuing and affirming effort. Their plans might not be always our plans. At Christmas, I was given a present by one of the dear ladies with advancing dementia. Earlier in the year, she had knitted me. She was a professional knitter for, John Lewis, I think, doing these hand-knitted things. And she knitted me a marvelous hat, but it was too small, far too small. So I thanked her, and I said, it's really, really kind. I'm really honored to have this hat. I've still got it, but it's too small. I've got a big head. It's my fault. So for Christmas, she presented me with a package. She said, I've knitted you something else. So I thought, help. And I opened it, and it was a pair of gloves, but they were big enough to put a frying pan in. And I was so grateful. I was so impressed. She had remembered that I really appreciated her knitting. She had remembered that her previous offering was too small. Anyway, that's a diversion. When I was a GP, I didn't know that I didn't know. I thought I was a good GP, but I didn't know that I didn't know about dementia. There's been a tremendous change in the last 10 years. I was diagnosed 10 years ago, and there was very, very little around to help. There's much less stigma now, and I think people with dementia have helped that by speaking out. I'm so glad to see that Music 2020 has now launched as a hub for national resources. I'll come back to that type of thing later. I've always known the importance of music, and we need to get everybody else to see it, and having dementia training doesn't necessarily seem to work. Just last week, I went to part of our village where people with more advanced dementia needing 24-hour one-to-one care are, to see lots of different people, because I love it. And there were 2 gentlemen there that I've been visiting over the years, so I went up to them. They were sitting with a member of staff who was cutting out paper doilies, I think. Fine, but not talking to the gentleman. So I said, oh, hello, Bill, hello, Brian, lovely to see you. And they smiled at me. And the staff member turned to me and said, how do you know their names? So I said, well, I've been visiting them for a long time. I make it my business to find out their names. Oh, don't see the point. So I said, I'd like to come and talk with them. Well, they don't talk back, do they? So I said, well, yes, they do. And in fact, Bill, I said, just the other week, he really woke up in a new way with music. Someone turned the wireless on. He really came alive in a way I'd never seen him before, all the years I've been visiting him. And it stopped the minute the wireless was turned off by a member of staff who thought the noise was disturbing the other residents. But this particular member of staff said to me, Music does not work with him. He hates it. And she turned to me and said, "You hate music, don't you?" So it came out a year ago. But it's more than just looking after people. We've got to be more proactive. We've got to do something to slow down the progression, and I passionately believe we can, and that's what I've put in my book as well. And I think we should do more about rehabilitation. I mean, you all know with stroke now, don't you? In the last 10 years, how things have changed tremendously. Many, many people with stroke now improve once they've had a stroke, don't they? Well, the damage is still there in the brain. Not all of them do, but a lot do. Well, why don't we do something like that with dementia? I'll come back to that later. And there's still confusion between Alzheimer's disease and dementia. Only yesterday, because I'm quite computer literate, I was looking at the websites of two organisations which are probably represented in this room. And on their website, they said Alzheimer's disease and dementia, as if they were two separate things. Well, that doesn't help the general public, does it? But what works for one person doesn't work for another. So we need to have the personalised business. And the younger onset dementia are often neglected. I had to take early retirement because of my dementia, because as a doctor, I couldn't risk putting the decimal point in the wrong place, could I? But many people can still work. They can. I'm sure some of you saw that program about the restaurant that makes mistakes, about these people with dementia that ran the restaurant. I mean, they needed a lot more help than they were provided with at the beginning. But because of that, it's gone on, hasn't it? And other firms and restaurants and other places are now employing people with dementia, which is brilliant. Why not? The language has changed too, and the media have helped. Did any of you see that program, Elizabeth is Missing, recently? I'm sure you did. Well, one of the carers came to see me afterwards, the husband of his wife who's got advanced dementia, or advancing dementia, and he said to me, "I was really upset by it." So I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, how do I know whether my wife is also trying to address things in the past that haven't been resolved? How am I going to find out about that?" He said, "The people that support me aren't interested in that. All they're interested in is keeping her safe and happy and clean." And then there's the intergenerational work. That's been helped with the media, hasn't it, as well? You know, with the young children who relate very well to people with dementia. And I know the Alzheimer's Society have done something now with superheroes, which is a beginning. And when I developed dementia, my family produced a cartoon. My daughter wrote the story, my son produced the cartoon, about a dragon that has dementia, to try and explain to children about it. And it's actually on the national school curriculum. It is. It's been there for about 8 years. But dementia training in schools is not compulsory. It isn't. So we've got to start educating much earlier, haven't we? If we ask the wrong questions, we'll get the wrong answers. I was at a conference last year speaking. It was a big conference, and I was asked to have a stall with my resources. I got quite a lot. And the person on the next stall was the manager, the director of a very large cleaning firm. And he had heard me say, he said, "I didn't know so much of that." He said, "But my problem is that my staff don't get training. They're just cleaning staff. But they go into care homes and hospitals and other places, and they meet people with dementia, and they get really upset because they don't know what to say to them. And they come to me or to their managers and say, 'I don't like working with people with dementia because if I say things to them, it upsets them, or they get cross or angry with me.'" So we talked about it, and I said, explain things, and he said, "Could you produce a leaflet to help them? Someone who doesn't know anything about dementia, just a small leaflet." And I think you've all got some on your tables now.
Yeah, I've put them on the tables, so you should be able to.
Which is interesting, isn't it? So, had anyone ever thought of that? But many GPs aren't actually interested in doing proactive work or rehabilitation work, and the workers are stretched and funding is low. I mean, I know the Alzheimer's Society have had to reduce their involvement with one-to-one stuff and encouraging other people who do stuff because the councils have withdrawn their funding. So it's, you know, we need to work together. read it. Now, I just want to run through a list of things, and we are going somewhere with this. There are people who do a lot with dementia. Guideposts did postcode prescriptions for personalised care, which were brilliant all around the country. I don't know if any of you remember that. But it's all stopped because the government withdrew all the funding for it. But that was brilliant. That was years ago, wasn't it? But they had the expertise and they knew how to do it. Age UK support the carers particularly, don't they? And they've also absorbed quite a lot of the smaller charities who do good stuff. I mean, one of them is First Taste that used to work up in Derbyshire. They did a lot of rehabilitation stuff. The Alzheimer's Society support research and do education. They've now got innovations involving people with dementia, and they do training for dementia friends. But that's 1 hour. And so many of the dementia friends I meet think they're now experts. It has to be a continuing process, doesn't it? And DEEP, that's what, dementia, engagement and empowerment, work particularly with younger onset dementia people. And Ian Sheriff in Plymouth with dementia-friendly communities. These are all people doing different things, good things. And the Dementia Action Alliance have actually produced a dementia-friendly hospital charter, which is brilliant. And then Alistair Burns has produced the Wellness Pathway, which is good. And the Dementia We Statements by the Alzheimer's Society, updated in 2017, and NICE even updated their guidance, didn't they, in 2018 to include music. And churches do a lot, and communities. So wouldn't it be wonderful if DCAN could be a hub for all these things like Music 2020 is? A hub for all national resources? We need one organisation, an umbrella that's neutral, in a sense, that can absorb them all. I was told I could say something about all the different 6 steps, but I'm not going to because I think you've all said a lot of good stuff. But the problem with a lot of it is the time that's involved. I spend hours, I love it. I spend hours with carers and people with dementia listening to them. And things change. What worked one week doesn't work the next. We have to continually change and update and adapt. Now, I'm a great believer in assistive technology. I know we're not talking about it here now, but I did warn them I was going to say something about it. So the person is still there.